Broadcasting live in downtown Oakland.
I'm David Hollander, and you're listening to Protect Your Assets. Over the last 20 years, I've met many people dissatisfied with the lack of value and personal attention their financial advisor provides them. At Liberty Group, we personalize every aspect of our clients' retirement and financial plan with estate law, wealth management, and tax planning all under one roof. Call today to make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Since 1948, the Silverstone circuit has remained one of the most historic races that you can find in the motorsport world, and it has seen many a change throughout the decades as we get set to go racing here tonight for yet another round of the Real Races Virtual Club presented by Liberty Group. Tonight, though, it is not even the most recent iteration of Silverstone that we find ourselves racing at. It is, in fact, an older version, one that has not seen action all the way since 2010. Hello, one and all, and welcome to Tuesday Night Racing here on RaceSpotTV. My name is Noel Rempo. I've got Sumo Aurora beside me in the commentary box with Hugo Louise down behind the cameras for tonight's presentation. So, Sumo, as you can see, a very foggy day here over the Silverstone circuit. And before we came into today's race, we were expecting to see the Legacy National coming into tonight. A last-minute change, though, sees us instead racing at the historic Grand Prix circuit for tonight's action.
What race? What circuit? What, can you see something? Nah, just kidding. Just an average fall day in the UK, this one. But I'm so glad that we're actually doing the bigger layout. I'm so glad that we're getting back to the old Silverstone, because this is the kind of circuit where at least I grew up watching. And the racing here was tremendous all the time. It's fast, it's flowing. You don't go down to the loop section, which means you have a couple of more faster corners in that sense, and it makes it fun, much like all the races we've had so far. I mean, we saw the Red Bull Ring the last time out. Things were just insane, and the fact is we go to 3 more legendary circuits much like Silverstone, which means that the Real Races Virtual Club is always just in a good situation, always in races where racing is possible.
And as you saw, this is the last of the international races before we head back over across the pond to the United States of America for the final 3 races at, of course, Sonoma, Laguna Seca, then rounded it off at Road Atlanta. So it is going to be an exciting race here throughout the course of the night. And take a look at the point standings coming into today. Anders Krohn still maintains the points lead coming into today with 106, the only driver in the triple digits, with drop weeks being taken into account. Max Butler down in second place, 21 points behind, so there's still quite a ways to go if Max Butler wants to put himself up into title contention here in the season.
Indeed there is, and Butler, well, he might not have the out-and-out raw pace that Anders Krohn has, but he has to capitalize on those events where Krohn isn't quite able to get everything in. And there could be a chance that this race could be the one. Maybe all 3 races coming up could be those ones. And Butler always has to be on top of his game. But one name that's going to be missing out from this round, rather 2 actually, Robert McGuinness and Wade Michael, both of them not available. So maybe our defending champion Matthew Escajeda can jump them up a little bit. But remember, draw rounds are also a case here.
And of course, it is worth noting that Robert McGuinness would have been here tonight, but he is currently out at Road Atlanta with a newcomer to the series who is going to be hopefully joining us later on in the season, Roman DeAngelis. He's out there racing for IMSA. Of course, so this should be an interesting race to see them out there. We wish them, of course, the best of luck in their real-world racing endeavors here this weekend over at Road Atlanta. So you take a look at some of the names coming into today. So far, we got a couple of new names that we saw last week returning here today. Bill Deeds, of course, fairly fast into practice times. You're currently seeing him running through the middle portion of the lap and towards the end of the lap, and he has got looks to be Max Butler just in behind second place and points. Stephen Wilson also making yet another return to the series. He is at the moment just 300th of a second in practice off of Dean's best time.
Yeah, Phil Denez and Stephen Wilson, they just look outrageously close. I want to see this battle take place properly, because we saw Denez versus Anders Krohn, or rather whatever little we saw of it. But to see them race together with Stephen Wilson, oh, this is just going to be very, very good. And especially in these conditions, Nolan, where racing is going to be even trickier, and you barely can see your next apex. How ridiculous would be that? And to go side by side like these guys always do.
And that head-on shot of Maggots and Beckett as Dennis runs a little bit wide, really shows just how little visibility they're working with. Take a look at this view down the hangar straight. You cannot see what's too far in front of you, which definitely is going to make it a bit of a hazard tonight, trying to get the racing under your feet. It is very, very humid out there at the moment. We're talking 81% humidity when the session went live. Talk about 100% humidity now. And with it only being 69 degrees Fahrenheit currently down there on the track, and 68 in the air, that means, of course, a lot of moisture in the air, generating a lot of fog for these drivers to race through today. And we're really wide over those Vodafone markings on the exit of Club. It should be an interesting race, I think it's worth saying. This race was not nearly this foggy the last time we were here at Silverstone back in the spring, which was, of course, for the Formula 3 spring season. Here in the Pro Mazdas, though, it should be a rather interesting race. This is definitely by far one of the lowest visibility races we have seen, and not just in this season, but for a long time overall here on RaceSpotTV as well.
Yeah, exactly. It almost seems like the UK from the 19th century in a way. It's all foggy, it's all misty, you can barely see anything, but less about the problem, more about the solution. How do you get faster here? How do you tackle with the fog? Quite simply, do more laps, get used to the circuit. And what makes it rather tricky, Noran, is the fact that this particular layout hasn't quite been used for years. And yes, we have access to it on iRacing, but normally when you compete in any series, you tend to go for the more modern layout that every series will use. And so it's just all about dialing in those laps to see if you're familiar with all the apexes, where your turning and points are, where your braking zones are, and Butler clearly isn't 100% certain about that. Hence why he went wide. The more laps you do, the more instinctive you become, and that is exactly what you need when the conditions are quite like this.
You mentioned, of course, this layout, not being used in some time. In fact, the first time this particular layout was used was all the way back in 1997. And apart from a small reprofile on one of the corners, along with that added in pit lane in 2003, the layout stayed this way from 97 all the way up to 2009, to which was reconfigured to the track we all know and love in 2010. The start-finish line was officially moved to the exit of Club instead of on the exit of Woodco all the way back in 2011, where it has remained to this day, with the only addition to the track so far being the name of course, that Hamilton straight on the exit of Club in the run-up towards Abbey. So it is a very historic layout, of course, and it also does feature, a bit of a couple of faster corners. We are running the historic Grand Prix layout, which means that Club chicane, it is a much more fast and fluid chicane. Yeah. These cars nearly flat out. The Abbey chicane completely removed, instead replaced with a left-hand kink that, again, you take flat out.
Yeah, that's what it should be like, shouldn't it? It's just all going to be flat out, and you can take a look at it right here. Quick racing, and the best part is, this circuit was designed, unintentionally in a way, because of course it was an airport back in the day for the RAF, but unintentionally just turned out to have a lot of flow everywhere. There is not one corner that'll properly break your flow at this circuit, which is what makes racing here so much fun, and which is what makes it such a big challenge to go side by side, because at one time you're trying to go as fast as you possibly can, but you've also got to respect the other driver. And oh, wait a minute, before I get to that corner, just take a look at that Jordan livery. Who is running that? That is beautiful. Jackson Ball, he just nails it every time with his liveries, doesn't he? Wow.
Definitely one for the classics, isn't here? It really just goes to show just how beautiful cars looked back in the day. Of course, This was the livery that was, of course, run on that Jordan F1 team way back when. We're talking like well before even I was born. So, you had some beautiful and stunning cars back then. And hey, you often see people try and make those adaptations into the real world and into the modern cars as well, especially on iRacing. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's one of those times where I think it's worked out quite nicely.
Yeah, especially those blue linings that are running across the car. They've suited it well. The livery designer has done a lovely job with this. And you're right about that. Sometimes it really does work. Other times, we've seen funnier incarnations of Formula 1 cars on the USF 2000 and Pro Mazda and whatnot. But I think on the whole, liveries have been fine here, and they've been pretty good. I do like what Anders Jonas done though. A pink race car, regardless of whatever design is on there. It's a pink race car. It's just bound to be fun. And it's the fastest one in the series.
Making sure that no matter how foggy it is, you'll never be able to miss that neon pink machine of Anders Chrome barreling towards you at over 100 miles an hour.
Exactly. Especially when it's leading. And then that's been the case so far this year.
So a minute and a half remaining here in practice. And of course, Silverstone is going to be a very unique challenge for the drivers today. It is a very fast and flowing circuit. It's a lot of long straights. We can get the hammer down to try to go for drafting passes. But interestingly enough, with this layout, not a whole lot of very hard braking zones. The only hard braking zones actually come into a few shorter straights, which should make it a very interesting dynamic today about all these side-by-side battles typically running through faster corners. Could be a game of chicken at the end of the day.
You're so right about that, and we saw this with Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen. Different iteration of the circuit, definitely, but it's all about who's got the line and who's actually willing not to lift off. And in these cases, yeah, in a fun race, many drivers might lift off here and there, but we've often seen that the fun element can go away when you're in the midst of a really fun battle. Good thing is they're able to communicate with each other, which Hamilton and Verstappen, of course, couldn't quite do. So they'll be telling each other, right, I'm on the outside line, just be a little more cautious, don't quite squeeze me out there. And that's the fun part, Nolan. That would make it the best thing, because now you're able to talk to the other drivers, so you're able to put on a show while having fun and not crashing out. I mean, what else could you ask for?
It also helps the fact that these Pro Mazdas, while they are slower, they are not as aerodynamically dependent as well, which makes them a heck of a lot better for racing as well. So much easier to pull alongside, to be able to hold it side by side through some of these faster corners as well, which should make it an absolutely thrilling race to watch here today. 25 minutes coming on up, but first is a 10-minute 4-lap lone qualifying session. And as the checkered flag falls on practice, I want to give a bit of a thanks to some of the guys that helped to keep the lights on here at the Real Racers Virtual Club. And of course, got to start it off with the title sponsor of the season, Liberty Group. They believe that everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always wanted. Their team of professionals can help you to create a well thought out strategy using a variety of investments and insurance products and services to help you address your financial needs and concerns. As well as that, the Stephen Wilson Racing Academy, headed up by Stephen Wilson himself, who is here tonight. SWAR exists to assist clients on their motorsport journey. SWAR utilizes 20 plus years in the sport with advanced coaching techniques, track and car knowledge, and widespread international industry connections to help clients progress to any level imaginable. Whether the client is new to racing on track or an experienced amateur racer, we help our clients develop driving skills that enable them to climb to the Ferrari Challenge ranks, win races in Ferrari Challenge, advance to competing in Pro-Am racing, and one day possibly iconic races such as the Daytona 24 or the Le Mans 24 hours. And of course, last but certainly not least, Merit Partners. Merit Partners is a high-end boutique car dealership specializing in Porsche and Ferrari with an extensive network of private clients. Merit curates rare and exotic cars for the purpose of buying, selling, and creating investment portfolios. The focus of Merit is to build long-term relationships over time, choosing to have a narrower focus and going deeper with clients. Additionally, Merit offers a wide range of peripheral services for clients, including car storage, detailing, specialty parts, and paint protection film. That's a shout out to some of the guys that helped to keep the lights on here at the Real Racers Virtual Club. They helped us to be able to bring this series live to you here from RaceSpotTV. Qualifying just underway. It looks as though it'll be Anders Krohn to be one of the drivers to set the first benchmark times on the night.
As he normally does. Just watch him flow around this circuit. And this is his first lap, so take it easy with this one. It'll come. This one will be fast. This one will be representative. But someone will go out there and beat this lap by, say, 1/10 of a second. And we'll feel like, oh man, this is just an amazing lap time. They've beaten Anders Krohn by this much. But then in his second lap, Krohn will really go out there and snatch it away from them. That's how qualifying has normally gone in this series. And that pink Hello Kitty machine has been mighty fast. But I get a feeling with Phil Denez here, with Stephen Wilson here, that pole might not be guaranteed, Nolan. In fact, Denez beat Krohn the last time out they raced each other at the Red Bull Ring.
We're currently watching it on more lap from Anders Krohn. You saw that fast, almost flat out chicane all the way down the Vale Hill up through Club. Here comes the other major iteration change on the circuit, apart from the layout we're used to seeing. There's the flat out left-hand corner of Abbey opposed to the right-hand kink that is using today's layout underneath bridge for a right-hand sweep for deep on the brakes for Priory. A left-hand corner that sweeps around 90 degrees to the left. We're rejoining with the circuit we know and love up at Brooklands. Then back to the right for Luffield. And you saw dancing on the brakes, dancing on the throttle all the way through the Baggett's and Beckett's complex earlier today. And in fact, earlier in this lap we rode on board as well. And that is always going to be one thing to watch out for. Every corner in that Maggots and Beckett's complex exiting on the Chapel curve down the Hanger Straight is absolutely critical to get right. Not to mention the runoff to Maggots. You see the flat out, well, almost flat right-handed through Cops. Have to lift off a little bit, but you almost get down the power immediately after it. This is the set of corners where you're always going to have to watch out for, especially guys trying to go side-by-side through here. Almost never ends well.
Yeah, almost never ends well. 2017 comes into mind with Formula 1 where Danny Kvyat and Carlos Sainz just bumped each other up and eventually had a major accident. And it wasn't, in fact, completely the torpedo's fault as well. So just think about it a little bit when you mentioned his name early on. But now, this is going to be really interesting. The fact that they can communicate helps, but also the intensity of these races. We often know that when you're in the middle of the race like this one, you often just tend to forget about whatever's happening. You tend to focus on your target, and your target is to be up ahead. And that can be a bit of a bad thing for the show at times, because then, of course, you might get a little too aggressive and you might see a crash. But I hope that wouldn't happen today. But so far, just these onboards have left me so entertained. I don't know why we even felt the need to change this layout, to be honest. It's just beautiful.
Silverstone tends to be an it tends to be an entertaining track, no matter what layout you go to, and certainly the historic Grand Prix layout remains one of my favorite layouts that you can get on the iRacing service. We right on board with Stefan Wilson, the number 10 machine. Hasn't been present for the first portion of the season. Seems to be making a bit more of a charge here, though, in the latter portions of the year. He is going to see what he can do as he exits out through Luffield. He will be trying to make his way all the way out through Woodco. A completely flat right hand, getting so close to the Apex Ballers. That's a 1:35.982 for his first lap on the day. That is good enough for P2, but it is still over 4/10 behind your current provisional pole sitter.
Have you ever quite hit the bollards, Nolan, at the Luffield corner? Have you ever quite hit the bollards on the inside line?
Oh, absolutely. Many times.
And then what happened with this car?
Well, with this car, particularly nothing. You tend to just kind of phase through. I've gone through enough that I got a slowdown penalty, though, so that was fun.
On other simulators, this bollard will completely knock your entire car off. It damages your front wing, it completely wrecks your tires and whatnot. It's interesting, but there's always this what if when you're going side by side. Can you force someone into the bollards or something like that? I mean, honestly, we've seen a couple of footages of races where drivers have forced each other into the pit lane. So the bollards might not be the hardest thing in the world, to be honest, but that won't happen here. That's just on the fun side of things. What will be fun, though, is to see if Escajeda can improve. To see him only P5 right now, that is quite good, but the gaps, they surely can come down. And what about this man? What sort of lap time can he put in today?
For Phil Dennis, it is going to, of course, be an interesting day for himself. He came in with a lot of force at the Red Bull Ring just 1 week ago, and he definitely proved he has a race-winning car. As you see Nicholas Leo go 7th fastest on the boards. He is now the only driver in this 11-car field that has not set a time so far. And I honestly don't think this is going to be good enough to go for provisional pole. He kind of bottled Beckett's a little bit right before he turned back for the Chapel curve. Took a bit too much. He swung a bit too wide out towards the left side of the racetrack, so it kind of compromised his entire run down the Hanger Straight. We'll have to see where it will be in relation to him, though. He's been carrying a lot of speed through a lot of these corners throughout the second portion of the lap, which so far seems to have been working for him so far. The good news is he's only on his first lap so far, so he's not going to have enough time to get all 4. He's definitely going to have enough time to go for 1, maybe 2 more if he can be quick enough. We'll have to see where he goes this time around as he comes out of the final corners, pushing way wide out left onto the red and white rumble strips, and he'll coming around through Woodco, and he is going to abandon his lap. Opts to take the toe to pit road. He has now got time for, well, actually no laps on the boards. He's not going to have enough time to complete another out lap and get a time lap in as well.
Yeah, I wonder why he took the toe then. Maybe he just wants to have a little bit of fun by starting right at the back, which he certainly can do. He's got enough pace to even go out there and win this race from there. But with people like Stefan Wilson at the top of the grid, it's just going to be a very hard task. Yes, you might climb back up to, say, P5, P6, but perhaps even P4. But when Stefan Wilson, drivers like him are around, you just can't make your positions up so easily. And more importantly, you just can't make up your time so easily because he is just super consistent.
And Nicholas Leo looking to improve a little bit more. He just went 5th fastest on his latest lap, which was the 3rd lap. He will have time to get a 4th one in before he ends his day off. Wilson hard into the wall, though. First on the right, then back over to the left. And parking it in a very interesting fashion over the left-hand side, as you can see. And I have a feeling that car got a little bit unsettled, was not having the lap because he turned hard right into the wall. And obviously that, I think it goes without saying, his 4th lap has been invalidated as a result of that. And look back to Nicholas Leo to see what Leo will be able to make on his lap. He's been good enough for P5 so far. He will be trying to see if he can maybe go that little bit further, maybe get onto the front 2 rows.
Yeah, if he does, he'll become a hot target. Sorry, just had to.
I'm going to pretend that I didn't hear that. It's good. I've heard bad puns before, Sumo, but my goodness, we're taking it to a new level here. I thought mine were bad.
No, you wait until the race comes on, and I hope, fingers crossed, that nobody hits him. But if he does, if anyone does for that matter, you know what's going to be said. Quite clearly.
Yes.
Especially if it's a side-on impact, no? Right on target, bullseye? No, I certainly hope not. I certainly hope that's not going to be the case for Nicholas Leo, because in a few races this season, he has shown that he's got the pace in there to potentially maybe just push for top 5s. But you see, this is why.
Good enough for the front 2 rows, and once again, celebrated in interesting fashion. Shades of Rick Sheldon, potentially. Checkered flag on the last time we raced at Silverstone. Don't be surprised if you see something similar at the end of this race. So here's Phil Dennis really rounding the club curve, but he is not going to have the time to get that 2nd lap in. So he is the only driver to not set a lap time. So with the grid set and qualifying complete, let's take a rundown of your starting grid here from, I believe this is round number 8 now in the Real Race Virtual Club here at Silverstone. It is Anders Krohn who will be starting on pole position. Stefan Wilson, almost 6/10 back down to 2nd place. So once again, Krohn is the man to beat. Max Butler is down to 3rd place with Nicholas Leo clocking another lap at the buzzer to put himself on the front 2 rows. Zach Hudson rounds to the top 5 with Matthew Escajeda still down at 6th.
We then have Jeremy Clark in P number 7, followed by Dave Anderson in P8. Jackson Ball starts in 9th. Kurt Pansegro in P10, but what is Phil Dennis doing in P11? That's the question every viewer has got on their mind. That's the question, frankly, we have got on our mind in the commentary box as well. Perhaps just playing some games, perhaps trying to see what happens if I start from the back. Can I make up all the positions, like those last to first challenges, which is a bold claim, by the way. But remember, the last time he was here, he won the thing and won it big.
He almost didn't win it big, though. Remember, he was under some serious pressure, at least for the first half of the race, until 2nd place had their own struggles and ended up spinning out all of their own accord. Of course, when Anders Krohn had his major struggles that he had to work with throughout the rest of the race. You can see, still utilizing the standard 10-minute 4-lap qualifying and 25 minutes here on the night. And the pace car gets set to roll this field around these final couple of corners before we take that green flag. So with almost 6/10 separated Anders Krohn and Stefan Wilson, this track has a bit to say about draft, but it is not all about draft, as it might be with some races we've seen earlier in the year, such as Watkins Glen. So it could be an interesting race for Anders Krohn if he finds himself having a bit of a mistake, just like he did 1 week ago. The question is, will he be safe, or will he have his own struggles throughout the course of the night? Only one way to find out is by watching the rest of the 25-minute race tonight. The field is stacked up, doubled up, ready to go. 11 cars strong, headed up by Anders Krohn. Green flag waves, and we are racing here from Silverstone. The 11 cars blast down to turn number 1, and already it is a huge launch of Anders Krohn. Max Butler trying to make the overtake of Stefan Wilson down to turn 1, trying to pick up 2nd place. That's not going to work for him. He's now under fire from Nicholas Leo, trying to go around the outside into Maggots and Beckett's.
Yeah, Krohn with a lovely start, and he's put behind Stefan Wilson with such a margin. But Butler, what's happened to his momentum? For a second, it seemed like he could get 2nd place, and there's the surge. He comes flying past.
As they merge through the fog, you can still see 11 cars strong. Max Butler trying the outside around Stowe from Stephen Wilson. Wilson pushes across the cover on the left-hand side of the racetrack. That checks all 3 of them up. Anders Krohn, though, is just shooting away into the distance. Meanwhile, Phil Dennis deeper in the field. He is already up to P8 at the end of this one. Look at how wide it is for Nicholas Leo and Zach Hudson pushing out of turn number, I don't know what corner that is, but I can tell you right now, it is certainly going to be club.
Exactly. Now Stephen Wilson under pressure. Butler getting closer all the time. And there's a send from Hudson. Almost making contact with Nicholas Leo, as all of our viewers predicted in the YouTube chat, but not close enough this time. So the target was acquired, just not making contact. But Hudson, now, he missed out on that chance, perhaps getting a bit too close. And what happened right there was, because he got a bit too deep at Priory and Brooklands, he couldn't quite carry the momentum out into Luffield, which is why he's some 3/10 behind and could be under pressure from behind.
And look at Phil Dennis working his way up through the field, just trying to complete the pass on Jeremy Clark inside of Stowe, but Clark has got him covered. Does he fly out through Cops, and down into Baggett's and Beckett's? Finally, Jeremy Clark backs out, gives that spot up to Phil Deans as they fly through Maggots and then ducking back to the right hand through Beckett's. Escajeda, meanwhile, trying to close up to Zach Hudson, but it has not gone anywhere for Matthew Escajeda at the moment. Phil Dennis, this is going to be good news for that 98 car as he gets set to try to run down Escajeda to see if he can maybe pick up a top 5 finish.
So perhaps it's a good time to cue up the Jaws music, isn't it? Yeah, Phil Dennis is coming. He is going to chew everybody up. So far, Clark, Ball, Anderson and Pansegra have been easy targets for him, which is quite an interesting thing to say because those guys can be fast on their day. So you know what sort of driver we are looking at right now. And just watch how he gets closer. It's in the corners. It's where he carries more speed, where he carries more confidence in the car. And before you know it, he'll be on the inside or perhaps even outside if he's daring enough of Escajeda, who is our defending champion.
Escajeda might be focusing a bit too much on trying to run down Zach Hudson up in front. He continues to compromise some of these lines through some of these tighter corners of the later portions of the lap. You look at Pryor and Brooklands not having the best of lines through there, and that is allowed for Dennis to close right up to the gearbox out of Woodcote in the mad dash down towards Kopp. Does Dennis look for the inside line? He opts to back out and instead is going to just follow along into Kopp. I have a feeling though he's going to try something out of Chapel and down the hanger straight into Stowe. That is honestly one of the best passing zones you can have on the track, despite Stowe being such a high speed corner.
Yeah, Stowe is for the daring. And we've seen so many drivers go around the outside at Stowe. And it clearly is for those drivers who have got a little bit more of a pace advantage. And you can see that Dennis has a pace advantage. Oh. Tell you what though, one driver doesn't. Somebody went off. I mean, fast, but that wasn't good.
It's Max Butler out of 3rd place, stumbling down, and I think he might have had a problem through Brooklands up through Chapel. That sees him lose spots well down to 6th and 7th place. Phil Dennis is going to go through up into 6th place. So if he can complete this pass then on Escajeda, it will most certainly be for P number 5 on the racetrack. Dennis looking for the inside through Club and up to Abby. Escajeda will hold the inside line. He's able to do so on the flat out left-hand sweeper all the way out through Abby and down for Bridge. Phil Dennis cannot make the move. He tucks it back in line. And again, no look made into Priory, just not close enough to make the dive bomb.
Yeah, if there's one part of the circuit where you really have to follow and you can't quite properly get anything done, it's this loop. But out of the loop is where the fun probably begins. And we will see Phil Dennis get something in a bit later. But here's what happened to Max Butler. And this is what we mentioned early on in the broadcast, Nolan. In qualifying, where you've not got 100% confidence in the car and where the apexes are on the circuit, you tend to run wide. And running wide at Silverstone, I don't know, it's like maybe getting on ice. Not that I have, but still.
And you could definitely see, just how bumpy that the outskirts of the track were. He was just vaulting up and over the grass and the access roads, the asphalt runoff, everything Max Butler could have launched over. He certainly did. He was lucky to not put himself into the barriers there. How about Phil Dennis, though, closing on Matthew Escajeda? He's going to make the look to the right side this time, down the hanger straight, blasting up towards Stowe, and this time Dennis is able to pull ahead by the time they reach the braking zone, and Escajeda has no choice but to back out.
But this is surprisingly positive, Nolan. For Diniz, all the other drivers took him around 5 odd minutes. It took him a while to get past Escajeda, but not too much, and that's the best part. It was clear that there's a difference in driving ability once you get to the drivers like Escajeda, so it takes more time to pass them, but luckily, he's got so much time on his hands that he can tackle all the other drivers with patience. He doesn't quite need to go for cowabunga type of moves. He can take it cleanly and clearly, as he does right now.
Zach Hudson, I think, made his intentions there quite deliberate for Phil Dennis. Just moved aside to let him pass behind. Max Butler's trying to work his way on Matthew Escajeda. Going to go down the inside of Butler to fight to the outside through Brooklands. And Max Butler is up into team number 8. So Escajeda has lost about 3 spots in just one lap. It has fallen apart for the defending champion. He now finds himself well down the order. He's going to have a bit of work to do if he wants to work his way up into the top 5. But having a bad line through Copse is not the way to do it. So Max Butler trying to run down Zach Hudson. And the battle for third on back to about 7th place has begun to split apart. 6th and 7th are the 2 closest cars on track at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. If there's one place in the world that doesn't quite need more lawn mowing, it is Silverstone. It's all well and done. You don't quite need to follow anyone on the outside line, and that's the best part, right? If you are not completely confident, you will end up doing some lawn mowing, as we've seen all the other drivers do. But I'm alarmed. I am alarmed by how quickly Diniz has caught on to Leo and how the other guys have stayed behind. And now, Wade Michael, of course, one of the drivers who's not quite with us today, but he's always very fast. He mentioned there could be a chance that Butler could follow along with Diniz in that case, but he just couldn't get it going. And that's why Butler's still right here. And Diniz, well, the bus has, not the bus has gone, but the ship has sailed in a way. And so Butler can't quite tag along and get those positions in.
Dennis, though, still has a bit of work to do if he wants to get that podium finish tonight. Going to look down the inside, a huge send down the inside of Nicholas Leo into Pariah. That's going to actually work out beautifully for Phil Dennis. Puts himself up in the 3rd place. I wonder if Nicholas Leo backed off a little bit in the run-up to the bridge because, again, pulled off line and braked a bit early from the corner. I think he might have let Phil Dennis have it.
Yeah, I suppose so. And now it all turns up into a battle of the timing screen. Just keep your eyes peeled in. I mean, it's going to be hard, certainly, but one eye on the timing screen and one eye on the action that you see right here. Because that gap, it has such a great possibility of getting cut down. Now, all of this was in dirty air. Diniz made that happen while he was following other cars. What if you give him clean air? How much faster can he go? But remember, at the same time, his qualifying wasn't quite great, so this is going to be an interesting prospect, this.
4 more seconds up to Stephen Wilson, so he's got a bit of work to do if he wants to get a spot further up the grid. But drivers are not focusing on bringing down gaps. They're focusing on swapping positions. Look no further than P6 and 5. Max Butler around the outside of Zach Hudson into Stowe. Misses the apex by some margin, despite Hudson breaking early to give up the spot. But Max Butler will still manage to come back and cover nicely before Hudson can get back on offense. So that number 2 car is going to have to be stuck in 6th place for the time being. Just got to hope, I think, that Max Butler makes a little bit of a mistake up the road to allow him to close back in and attack again for a top 5.
What's up with guys named Max being very defined at Silverstone and able to defend quite well? I don't know, just something with the name it seems like, because he's able to keep Hudson behind so well. And now Escajeda, now will he join this straight? Will he make it a 3-way party? And that just puts Hudson in a very precarious position, but so far that momentum isn't quite here. But you know what could change? What's happened here?
Leo spins out, collects Zach Hudson. Jackson Ball spins out just in front of them as well. Everybody's losing in their left field. They have to scramble to get through. Anderson makes it through. Hudson is destroyed. Take a look at this one through left field. Nicholas Leo loses it by himself, and poor Zach Hudson has nowhere to go. Collects Escajeda, and then Jackson Ball just got in the grass and stamped the throttle pedal trying to get back onto it.
Madness, utter madness, and I can't even tell you what I'm thinking right now, because the folks in the YouTube chat predicted this, and they said that Leo will have an accident with Hudson at the target logo, which is what happened eventually. I mean, not on the first lap, but 10 minutes in, but the circumstance of this. How did Leo lose it all on his own? Just maybe a lack of confidence in the car. I mean, it's easy for me to say, but you can make a marginal error at times, and all hell breaks loose. Oh my word, it's happened. It's uncanny.
Just a little bit of a loop around in the middle of a corner is all it takes. We've talked about before in this season about how these cars tend to have that problem with mid-corner and lift-off oversteer. And that problem seems to have finally taken yet another driver. Before, it used to, be an effect of the curbs. You take a look at the Red Bull Ring and how bad the sausage curbs were for these cars and how they caused some drivers to get spun around. But even the curbs did not play a factor into this latest incident. That sees 4 drivers in total being collected and 3 effectively out of the race, those being Clark, Hudson, and Escajeda. With Nicholas Leo, of course, well over a minute behind just the next driver up the road, let alone to the race leader.
Indeed, yes, and there is no sign of Wilson just reining Anders Cronin, which normally would be the case, as we have seen a couple of times so far this year, but not so much right now. Wilson is just settled into a rhythm of his own, but it's not the fastest rhythm, unfortunately, for him. And so Krohn is able to pull out and just maintain the gap, which is quite an underrated skill. But what's interesting is that Dennis is also not able to close it down that much.
All of that carnage took place in about the first half of the race. We're just now entering the second half, and there you can see the gap between Anders Krohn, who has so far led every lap of the race so far, and in fact has led a lot of the laps of the season thus far as well. Trying to keep Stefan Wilson at bay. It is a little bit interesting how this gap has been ebbing and flowing throughout the course of the race. One lap, Wilson might be faster than the 10th. The next one, though, Krohn will get him right back. It definitely seems to be a case of, who can make the most mistakes. I think Wilson is trying to apply some pressure to Anders Krohn as he closes into 1.27 seconds you saw there on the timing screens. Take down to 1.2. It is interesting. Overall, I think Wilson has been faster, but I don't think he's closing in Anders Krohn as fast as he might like.
Yeah, it will take a little bit. Now, normally 1.3 seconds can be closed up very quickly, say, if you're filled in as attacking all the guys in the background. But when you come up to somebody, I dare to say this, of your own pace on the day, it becomes a little bit harder. And so it's all about, as you rightly mentioned, Nolan, how many mistakes can you avoid? And Krohn at the start was able to just get that momentum, and that very momentum, that very gap has stayed on for the entirety of the race. And as you rightly mentioned, 1/10 faster, a couple of tenths faster here and there, it will eventually get back because both of you are essentially just putting in the same lap times or the same delta of sorts. And so Wilson, that's why he's just in that range, 1.3 to 1.7.
It has been concerning, though, that Stefan Wilson is all of a sudden so far back because usually hanging around 1.4 as a matter of fact. So the fact that he's all the way down to 1.7 now, it's not a good look for Stefan Wilson who wants to try to close in that gap. He had a bit of a bad run through Maggots and Beckett's, and I think that's what has kind of been compromising him here is he's down to 1.9 seconds now. So Stefan Wilson definitely losing a bit of time up here to Anders Krohn as we get past the lap car of Nicholas Leo collected in that most recent incident just a couple of laps ago. Further down the order, here is Jeremy Clark. He is actually in a battle for position with Matthew Escajeda. Both drivers one lap down. Escajeda fresh out of the pits after getting damage repaired. Jeremy Clark came out about one lap ago. It looks like Jeremy Clark could be in a fight of his own here pretty soon.
Could potentially be. Here comes Escajeda with the draft, with the power.
But not close enough to have that look down into the corner. And both these drivers are starting to close up to Zach Hudson, who's just a little ways up the road. Also one lap down. You saw him just enter stage right on your screens as well. So if this battle ends up picking up, that could allow Hudson to get a bit of a crucial gap. But if they stay like this, it could even close down and make it a 3-car fight, which would, of course, be for what is going to be 8th place now on the racetrack. So you got a lot of drivers that are trying to see what they can do here, see if they can potentially get a couple more spots. Clark really wide on the exit of Cobbs, and that allows Escajeda to breeze right past and Maggots and Beckett's. And that right there shows the hazards of the AstroTurf on the exit of Cobbs. You push too wide, you just have no grip. The front end bounces up and down, and you can't turn the car to get back onto the racetrack.
Exactly. Hence why the lines of racing so critical. Yeah, I mean, it's like a very silly thing for me to say when I can't properly nail all the racing lines, but that's the point here at Silverstone. You've got to be ultra confident in exactly what you're doing. A slight marginal error, and I literally mean making let's say, a little bit too late, or maybe turning a little bit too late, and your entire line, the entire flow of the circuit gets compromised, especially in this section when there's one corner followed by another one, followed by another one, followed by another one. You need to properly nail the line for every single one of them, and so that's how you get your pace in. And for Escajeda, he's been doing that consistently. Not the fastest, but at least he's got that done, and so he gets the position when somebody else makes a mistake.
It really much is a rhythm track, and I think you hit it perfectly on the head there, Sumo. I mean, you need to be able to carry that momentum through these corners. If you mess up one line on one corner, it could compromise you throughout the next series of corners. And I think Baggett's and Beckett's is the perfect example of that. You mess up the apex on Baggett's, and goodness gracious, you're going to be losing probably well over a second throughout the entire Baggett's and Beckett's complex, especially if you're offline right at the start of it.
Yeah, and more on the straight as well, because your exit is going to be bad, so you can't quite carry as much speed in, and so eventually you might end up losing 3 positions because you're just that much slower. Who even knows how things can go right here? It's just such a track of precision, and that sort of precision has been just tested very much by the circuit today, and the conditions as well.
We saw Jeremy Clark was trying a couple of times to get back past Matthew Escajeda, most notably tried a huge send up at a stove this last time by, but he just was not able to get the run that I think he might have liked. Problems with the 62 car of Dave Anderson, who finds himself well off the track, and that was actually through Maggots and Beckett's, I'm pretty sure, if that caught my eye correctly, and that means he has lost the place to Jackson Ball. That was the battle for P5. He's now down to 7th place on the track. Oh, it's a big off through Maggots and Beckett's as well for Dave Anderson. Just lost that one by himself coming up and over the hill.
Oh man, this just does not help Anderson right now. Luckily for him, he's got a lap on everyone else, but look at the amount of time he's lost to Pansegro, Ball and the likes. This is a bit of a bad one, which means that the next 7.5 minutes could be a bit too boring for him, unfortunately. But it's not going to be boring for Wilson and Krohn. They're going to be trying hard to get each other into a battle. Krohn rather, I mean, it's like a game of tag, isn't it? Wilson wants to catch, Krohn wants to run away. Who can have the edge here? And what about Diniz? Oh, Stanley's just falling back.
Phil Dennis, I think, has burned all his stuff of trying to close down Stephen Wilson. He's just not close enough to have that look. I thought about he was about 4 seconds. He closed it a little bit, down to about 3.7, but it just hasn't been enough. Now he's falling back to almost 5 seconds now behind just Stephen Wilson, over 6 seconds now behind Anders Krohn. Stephen Wilson has tried to close the gap as well up to Anders Krohn. It's down to about 1.4 seconds again, kind of flexion between 1.4 and 1.6, but like with Phil Dennis, I think it's going to be too little too late at this point for Stephen Wilson to close in that gap without a big mistake from Anders Krohn, especially considering the fact that you've got almost just about 5 minutes to go.
Yep, exactly. And you know that mistakes like this can come in, but with who? With Krohn? Do you see if they expect him to make a mistake like that? I don't really think that this is going to happen, right? He's done in enough laps, and you can see it in the way he's driving, that he is completely in a flow. It's like he's been here mentally before, and he's just getting out there and doing it right now. Which is going to make it a really hard task for Wilson. He's now going to fight himself as much as he's going to fight Krohn. Can he just eke out that little bit faster lap time and just go that little bit marginally faster? And even if he does go marginally faster, say 10 faster, what difference does it make? He's 1.4 seconds ahead.
When you say that, this last lap by closed in by about 0.4 of a second. Anders Krohn set a 136.0 and to 135.8 for Stephen Wilson. So the potential is still there. 5.5 minutes to go. That leaves just about 3-4 laps or so left on the clock. So if he can continue to close in about 0.4 a lap, maybe. It is a solid maybe. Worth noting that is at the moment on raw pace. He's outside of drafted distance. That gap could go down even further once the draft manages to catch up to him.
Exactly that point. Once you get in the draft range, that's when you can actually do something. Right now, he's just trying to get in there. And it's interesting, even if he gets into the draft range on the last lap, maybe last couple of laps, there could be a genuine chance. So don't write it off, as you rightly mentioned, Nolan. Maybe just that, a couple of slow laps, and that is when this thing could explode completely.
A slightly closer battle than the one for the race lead is the one for 6th place. Dave Anderson, after his spin, has been trying to run down Kurt Penzegru, who has not had the best of races himself. He started down at 10th, slowest of the drivers that has set qualifying last from about 0.4 of a second. And he has now worked his way up to 6th place as a result of all the attrition from drivers further down the order. So he is now just on the cusp of breaking through into the top half of the field, but Anderson looking to retake lost ground with a bad run through Stowe. Anderson is looking to apply that pressure and might be able to get him on this next lap here.
Could potentially happen even with that spin. So you can see how Anderson has properly got the momentum back on his side. Doesn't matter if you make a mistake. It's about how you get back in and how much faster you can get after that one. And Anderson clearly has the momentum, clearly has the draft on his side as well. So maybe we could see an overtake.
Oh, Penzaker too wide. The Pariah nearly goes up the tracks as they duck it in through Brooklands. Gives up even more time to Dave Anderson. The good news is a lot of these corners are constantly on the brakes and on the throttle, so it didn't cost him too much. Anderson stepping the back end out and power sliding then through Luffield to try to run down the gap, and it is definitely closer than the last time it was 30. You can see that is certainly evident. I'm going to predict this move is going to be made up in the Stowe this next time by, especially since Penzager, like we talked about, has been bottling so many of these corners over the last few laps, has not been able to just find the line. It's been such a rough run for him so far on just this last lap back, and he lost about 0.4 of a second back to Dave Anderson on this prior lap as well. But Anderson really slowed the Mags back. Is not as slow as Penzager is. Gets under the grass and he loses it through the Chapel curve.
Everything has gone wrong. Everything has gone on for Pansegro. He just was clearly uncomfortable. When under pressure by Anderson, Pansegro made a couple of mistakes, and there was the big one. And Nolan, it's the same thing. Missing the line at Maggots, Beckett and Chapel. Once you're off there, it is gone. No way coming back.
I think that Anderson did exactly what he had to do. He applied the pressure and forced Penzager into a mistake. Penzager was being intimidated by the rapidly closing gap. He kept trying to push the limit as to what his car could manage all throughout these corners, and eventually he pushed it a little bit too far. He only hurt himself. Completely self-inflicted error that might have been brought on by the pressure that Dave Anderson applied, but that is enough for Anderson to work his way up now into P number 6. That's about as far up now as Anderson is going to be able to make in this race with just 2 minutes to go.
Exactly. So, but it's still good recovery for Anderson, all things considered. I thought he wouldn't quite be able to get to anyone, but the way he fought back after that spin was quite remarkable to see it. So this move on Pansegro, it may look like he got it because of a mistake, but you're right, Nolan. He forced it. He put the pressure, and I get a feeling that something similar is happening at the top here.
Oh, look at how wide Wilson was, going right over those Vodafone markers on the exit of Club and down through Abbey. Still trying to close in. Down to 1.1 seconds now. This is the lowest that race gap has gone since the start of the race, and in fact under a second. But the problem is there's only one lap to go. He is definitely closing in, but you wonder if it is too little too late. Anders Krohn is within drafting distance now, under a second. But I have a feeling that Stefan Wilson will not be able to make this run for the position. He is just way too far back unless Krohn makes a bad mistake.
Exactly. So that's going to be a bit tricky for Wilson right now. How do you contend with that? But he's still going to try hard. It's not like he's given up. At the beginning as well, he knew that there was a bit of a gap, but he's closed it down by so much in the last couple of laps. There's certainly that attempt. There's certainly by try. And I wonder, is it Krohn just relaxing or Wilson just going extra hard? Whatever it is, we need something to happen in a way to see this battle get up the line. But I get a feeling that I think Krohn has it in the bag.
And Anders Krohn doesn't have to really worry about anything behind. Sure, he's got that gap closed down from Stefan Wilson, but with the clock set to expire this lap and the checkered flag fall, you see him start to weave a little bit around the track. Just want to be a little bit extra cautious, but I think he knows deep down there that Stefan Wilson at this rate is not going to be able to close. He's just got to run his lap clean and make sure he doesn't make any mistakes, and he'll be able to easily come away with yet another race victory, which would make it so that he has won pretty much about half of the season so far, and almost would be a guaranteed points win in that regard for Anders Krohn had this series been on full-on points as well. And it is official, final lap this time by the checkered flag will fall. The gap still closing 3/4 of a second. But as they go through Bridge and up through Pariah, Anders Krohn might have this one in the bag. Wilson off into the sand behind. He manages to keep it on track, though. The gap closes down to 5/10 of a second, and he's got a little bit of run through left field, but it is too little, too late. Anders Krone comes after the Woodco, and he will hold on to win the race here at Silverstone.
What a win. Commanding as always. Ice cool Anders Krone. He was under pressure from Stefan Wilson, but once he established a gap from the beginning, it was just going his way. What a win, and another one in similar fashion.
I wonder, had there been another lap or two, would Stefan Wilson have been able to come on top in victory lane? We can only help but wonder. Dave Anderson is looking set for a solid P6 finish on the day. He applied the pressure he needed to Kurt Panzagru to force Panzagru into a mistake, unless he gets taken out by Jeremy Clark. The lap car has been kind of pushed a little bit more, and Anderson looking to take it nice and easy out of these final corners. Fifth place is already well across the line. He knows he can't get there. He doesn't have anything to worry about from further behind as well. So Anderson will sweep through to pick up a 6th place finish. Overall, a good result considering the mistakes that he had earlier today.
Yeah, you've got to look at the positives, and the positives were that even after a mistake, he had what it took to get another position, to fight hard, to put the pressure on everyone else, including Panzagru. That was nice to see for Anderson. I mean, again, it's not about how many times you fall, about how you just get back up.
So with all of the drivers now across the line, let's take a look now at your official post-race results here from Silverstone. Anders Krone takes victory at the end of the day, just over a second, but it had closed to about 5/10 of a second in the final couple of corners on the final lap of the race. Phil Dennis is going to be finishing it out in 3rd place on the podium. We'll talk to all those drivers later on tonight. Max Butler is down at 4th with Jackson Ball in 5th. Dave Anderson is in 6th place. Kurt Panzagru, last driver on the lead lap, forced into a mistake of his own doing, down in 7th place. Nicholas Leo is in 8th place, 1 lap down, collected in a wreck with Zach Hudson, Matthew Escajeda, and Jeremy Clark, finishing 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th to round out the field here today. Fastest lap was set by Phil Dennis on lap number 12 from 16 in the race with 1:35.451. So that will wrap up the race here from Silverstone. And what a race it was. And we'll be able to give a chance to talk to all of these podium drivers here, and we'll kick it off with our race winner. Anders Krone joins us. And Anders, how many times have we seen you in victory lane? Because goodness knows you are getting set to lock this championship out early.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but I don't even know where we're at in the championship. But that was a lot of fun. Let me tell you, that was this car at this place is sort of the perfect combo of drafting, but still you can kind of hold your own even out front. So that was stressful, and I'm thankful that Phil didn't qualify, because I think I would have been in trouble if he did.
I'm going to kind of focus on the elephant in the room and going to focus up here on Stefan Wilson. Of course, he was really running you down to those last few laps, and we started to look a little bit nervous. That gap was down a half a second at one point in those closing corners.
It was getting a little too close for comfort. Now I was sort of just, I was so cognizant of I couldn't make a mistake, and I knew he was pushing 10/10, and it was just sort of I felt like I'd done enough with sort of 2-3 laps to go to where I could just let off a little bit to not push 10/10. But up until then, man, it was all out, and I was watching the delta every single corner, and it just stayed the same. And I would gain a half a tenth, he would pick back another half a tenth. So yeah, that was a great race, though.
And of course, looking forward, we kick it back stateside for the remaining races here on this fall season. And of course, it is going to be, I believe, Sonoma coming up next. It's a much more technical track, and one where passing can be a bit of a premium, especially compared to some of the tracks we saw earlier in the season. You reckon qualifying is going to be as crucial as it has been for you today?
Qualifying is definitely going to be very important, and I'm sort of kind of excited about the prospect of not being in these massive draft trains, but then again, you're only thankful for that if you're starting up front. So if I do a good job in qualifying, then I'll be happy about it. If I do a poor job in qualifying, I'll wish we were back at Road America or something like that.
And well, hopefully you'll be finding yourself yet another race win, Anders. You find yourself over 30 points now in the championship, so you're definitely looking good to get an early lockout on the championship here in the fall season. Before we let you go, well, it's been a pleasure, and I have to say, I hope we can talk to you again before the end of the season.
Appreciate it. Thanks so much. Appreciate you guys doing such a bang-up job with these broadcasts. It's a lot of fun to watch and awesome to see how much we've been able to build out the grid here. So appreciate it.
Thank you for the kind words. Ladies and gentlemen, your race winner, Anders Krone, at the end of the night here at Silverstone. Going to continue on down through the order. We're not able, I don't think, to get a hold of Stefan Wilson. So instead, we are going to be able to get a chat here with Phil Dennis. And Sumo, I'll pass it down to you for our P3 finisher, most spots gained on the night.
Phil, that must have been such a fun race. Last to third. Just talk us through that race, mate. And what were your favorite overtakes? Because there were a fair few.
Can't remember them all, but it was a lot of fun out there. I thought I would have some fun and didn't disappoint. I was so difficult to pass though. Once you got slotted into the train, the draft in this car was just so strong that no matter how much faster I was, I would get stuck for a few corners or maybe a full lap behind someone. There was no opportunity to pass, but I managed to pick them off one by one. And if I didn't get that slowdown around halfway through the race, I think I would have had a chance at fighting for the win. But I thought there was a bit of track that was available for use, and turns out it was not. So, yeah, it was good. I think I had a lot of fun, and the pace was good.
Yeah, that was fun to see. And what about the visibility, mate? Did it turn out to be a major problem? Because on the broadcast, we could barely see anything at all.
I'm sure it was worse on the broadcast than it was for us. It was pretty bad, but you could see pretty far ahead, so I don't think it really caused any issues for us, per se.
Oh, that's good to hear. And what about the series on a whole, mate? You've just come in, I think you've had only 2 race weekends, but to still be up here all the time with these guys, I'm sure you're having fun, and can we expect to see you for the next few rounds?
Yeah, I think I'll come around and, give Anders a run for his money and have some fun with him. And Stefan Wilson, these guys are all great drivers, and it's fun to have a little competition between us real life drivers here in the old Pro Mazda.
Always so fun to watch you race, Phil. Great stuff racing today, and hopefully see you for the next few rounds as well.
Thanks, guys.
So that was Phil Dennis coming on up from third place, being able to give us a bit of a chat. And we're going to continue to work our way down through the top 5. And this time it is Max Butler to come on up and give us a chat. And Max, it was a bit of a quieter race for you. You ended up this one about 12 seconds up to the next guy in front of you, over 30 to the guy behind you. No doubt you enjoyed some of the peace of quiet tonight, I can imagine.
I did enjoy the peace and quiet, but I did make a mistake that sent me back into what was then the incident heard around the world in this race. So I ended up losing the car a little bit, going wide at Beckett's, and it put me behind everybody. And I was really excited. I got a chance to battle some people, and I don't think I had anything in this race today for Stefan and Anders, but glad I got a little chance to hang out with some friends back there and made it through that turn going onto the front straight. So overall, very happy, and I got some good sim practice today by myself in the fog.
So overall, you are now about 29 points behind Anders Krone in the championship. He's looking set to potentially close it out, but the next 3 races are, of course, back stateside. Do you think if there's anything you can do to try to run him down to get that points lead back?
Yes, I think he's gonna have some personal life stuff coming up, and I hope that maybe he just can't make it to a few races, and anything I can do outside of this sim racing to make him not show up, maybe I might have a chance. But until then, I'm just gonna keep doing my best, running my best laps, and enjoying each race that comes.
We talked about Sonoma coming on up in just 1 week's time, and we talked about Xanders. It's a track that is very difficult to pass at. Momentum is, of course, key. Qualifying position is key. Do you have a game plan for next week?
Qualify as high as I can, and if not, I'm going to abuse some braking zones and really try to find the weakness in everybody. I think that's what it was today. The last sector of this track, it seemed like everybody was braking kind of easy, and that's where I ended up coming up on a lot of my time. So I think Sonoma is very similar, where if you know what you're doing in the car, you can gain a lot of time. So just try to pinpoint those weaknesses and keep my nose clean.
Well, fingers crossed you'll hopefully be able to go out and get a race win over at Sonoma. I know that's a track that you tend to, prefer, so maybe we'll be able to see you hopefully in victory lane in just 1 week's time.
You know what? You will. How about that? Calling it here. Heard it here first. It's gonna happen.
Well, hopefully hopefully it'll be a clean victory. Let's just say that.
You're right.
But we'll keep our eyes open.
Yeah, you're right. Let's hope for a clean victory. Nothing else, just a victory, but a clean one.
Well, at the end of the day, you got to do what you got to do. But thanks for joining us, Max, and best of luck next week.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
That was Max Butler. Always a pleasure to be able to talk to him up in the 4th place finish at the end of the day. And, well, you heard it there, Sumo. He's looking forward to next week. And what would you say your take is on the next week? Of course, you look at the point standings, and like I said, Anders Krone, 29-point sub. So you come into a race where it's easy to run away with it. I think one more win, and Krone might have this series in the bag.
Yeah, but I get a feeling that this next few rounds are going to be far harder for him to win. I think it's going to be exactly what we think it's going to be, a proper hard fight to the end, and I want to see what happens over there. But Butler, what if he can get that win, you know? What if he can actually challenge Krone for that win? I think it'll be incredible. I have a good feeling. Plus, we got a good circuit, so all things considered, things are going to be fun.
You never know what could happen. It's a series that is definitely, full of entertaining racing. It's very rare we get to see a more strung out field like we saw tonight, but who knows? We might see a similar story over at Sonoma, but that being said, the Formula 3 race at Sonoma this past season, it's a lot closer than I certainly expected it to be. And with these Pro Mazdas being as they have it all season long, it could be even closer as we go over there next week to wine country.
Indeed, yeah, and I want to say it's a home track for so many drivers in this championship. So there's this extra special element of coming back to Sonoma, and I want to see what it's like. And now there will be no sort of excuse of, I'm not used to the circuit. Everyone is used to Sonoma, right? Everyone has raced there so many times in real life as well. I get a feeling when the drivers are most comfortable, that's when you see the best racing, and Sonoma could well be that place.
You never quite know. Sonoma is a wild card track in of itself. Qualifying is crucial. The battles could be decided even before the 25 minutes turn up for the night. But for now, from Silverstone, it has been an exciting race here in of itself. My name is Ola Rempel, and Sumo Aurora has been joining me from start to finish here for the Real Races Virtual Club, presented by Liberty Group. Hugo Luis as acting technical director, and doing a great job as always behind the cameras on a very foggy day here at the Silverstone circuit. So Anders Krone extends his lead, officially 5 wins for that number 47 machine, trying to make it 6 in one country in just 1 week's time.